Hey, Magdalena Bay concert tickets. What's up? It's the Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite albums. And today, I know I'm doing a lot of reviews lately, even though a month ago I literally said I'll stop doing them, but I just have to because this is a really good album. Okay, this is a really good album. Today I'm going to be talking about the new Xiu Xiu album. Here, 13-inch Frank Beltrame Italian Stiletto with Bison horn grips. That's the name of this album. So Jamie Stewart and Angela Saw, the American duo art pop, drone, art rock, like indie rock, like anything you can think of. Xiu Xiu is back with a new album, and they have been making music since the early 2000s. They are veterans already at this point, and they have made music in every genre you can think of. They're extremely versatile, and they tend to switch up their genres every single album. They change styles every album, they change their whatever every single album. So obviously Xiu Xiu is one of the most exciting and interesting musical acts I have ever come across in my life, period. And I have started listening to their music since 2017 when they released Forget. And even though it is the first album I listened to from Xiu Xiu, it is also probably my favorite album from Xiu Xiu, partially because it is their most accessible, but also it has some legitimately mind burning, unforgettable moments on the album. Right from the crazy unhinged opener to the extremely dark and crushing ending, Forget just gets better and better and better every time I listen to it. And the title track on Forget, 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 is I absolutely love it. Of course, before Forget, we have the amazing Twin Peaks cover album that a lot of people seem to have forgotten about. But Xiu Xiu has a habit of alternating between softer, more accessible albums to harsher and more insane albums. So to follow up with Forget, we have the album Girl with Basket of Fruit in 2019, which is their foray into harsh, experimental, avant-garde, disturbing music that is more disturbing than the soundtracks of 99% of horror films I've ever seen. This is truly a cursed album. It's cursed. It feels cursed. Following that up, we have the very nice Oh No, which is an album where Xiu Xiu collaborates with another artist on every single track. And then, of course, to follow up with something nice, we have something extremely not nice, Ignore Grief, which I think is the first album in this string of albums that didn't really impress me, mainly because it is basically Girl with Basket of Fruit, but even darker, even more disturbing, but without the substance and the musical intrigue that I always associate Xiu Xiu with. Also, Jesus Christ, I cannot with my hair. I genuinely cannot with my hair. So, Xiu Xiu's new album, amazing album title. Already one of my favorite album titles of all times. Amazing album cover as well. I was anticipating this album for so long. And yeah, once again, Xiu Xiu is one of the most interesting musical acts I've ever encountered in my life. But also, I haven't given a single album 10 out of 10 since Black Midi's Cavalcade in 2021. And so I've been waiting for a 10 out of 10 album. And there is a small part of me that was like, ooh, you know what? Xiu Xiu's gonna drop a new album. It might be a 10 out of 10. And it's not. But it's still a very great album. And right off the bat, judging from the album cover, you can already tell that Xiu Xiu's going for a similar style to Forget. But instead of art pop, they basically go full speed ahead into experimental rock music with big drum hits, super overblown sunburned guitars, and other instrumentals. Of course, we have the amazing lead vocalist and lyricist of the musical act, Jamie Stewart, whose vocals are still really, really unhinged and is still amazing at writing unforgettable, disturbing, awkwardly horrifying lyrics. So a lot of elements on this album still really, really slap. So we have the album opener Arp Omni, which is a slow and quiet opener with swelling strings, downtrodden vocals, but we are matched with intensely beautiful lyrics about great love, a kind of love that he wishes that he wouldn't lose, which of course he does lose eventually at the end of the album, and he goes insane. More on that later. The next track, Maestro One Chord, has the muddy, driving drums, spooky, creepy, Halloween flavored synths, this weird, distorted vocoder, and also the chorus where Jamie Stewart goes, ooh, 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 like an owl. I know it sounds like a mess by the way I'm describing it, but trust me, this is a rock banger. It's groovy, it slaps really hard, and I love how muddy and busy it is, even though it's going for such an accessible sound. Following that, we have the first single from the album, Common Loon, which is a brighter and more easygoing track. The chorus builds up to very righteous sounding highs, and there's something about the synths on this track that is very Forget-esque, particularly the track Waiting. It just really reminds me of that. Then we have Pale Flower, which is probably a reference to the Japanese film of the same name. And this track is kind of spacey and drony for the first part, but it sort of turns into marching drums and hushed vocals, which sounds fine. But I think overall, structurally, the track is definitely one of the least interesting moments on the entire album. Of course, every time I film, somebody's gotta make some noise downstairs. Following that, we have the track Beneficium, which is absolutely one of my favorite singles of the year so far. This track is a banger that borders on goth rock with its anthemic drums, ascending chords that feel so overwhelmed with malice. I feel like I'm climbing the steps on an evil church trying to find the truth of a very disturbing death of somebody. It's truly fantastic. And again, Jamie Stewart's vocals is one of the most unique in the industry right now. I'm going to try to do an impersonation. I might make a fool of myself, but Jamie Stewart's vocals, he's like on the verge of a mental breakdown constantly. Air above the massive space, air above the massive space, oh, what's to become of this now? Sleep Boulevard is probably their most accessible track on the album. This track is legitimately catchy, but also very dreary and urgent. And yeah, rhythmically, this track is a little mid-paced, but it still has a lot of burning power, clashing cymbals, lots of intense instrumentals. Still a really great track. And then following that, we have TDFTW, where Jamie Stewart and Angela Saw has this dual performance where one of them does a spoken word and the other does unhinged, insane singing. And at the same time, on top of speedy, fiery guitars, weird, spammy sounds that I can't even describe, the instrumentals are so intense, I feel like I'm having a mental breakdown when I'm listening to the track. Then we have the track Bobby Bland, which is probably the most forgettable track here. This is definitely an experimental cut with a lot of sound play, but I think the track just didn't necessarily hook me or anything. And then finally the album ends off with I'm so done with my hair, by the way. The album ends off with Pina, Coconut, and Cherry, which is a very Xiu Xiu name, by the way. And it starts off pretty quiet, but don't let that quiet start fool you, because it builds up to an absolutely psychotic ending, and where Jamie Stewart basically rambles in character about being unloved, with refrains like fantasy, 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 and also I love you this hard for 12 years, you can't refuse to not love me back. Yeah, this is really good. This album didn't blow my mind. I still prefer some of their other works over this one, but it's still a really great album and definitely going to end up in the top 10 at the end of the year, for sure. I'm giving the new Xiu Xiu album 13-inch. Strong 8 out of 10. So, have you listened to the new Xiu Xiu album? Comments below. Let me know if you want more. And thanks for watching. I gotta go to work right now. Bye bye.